Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Joe Luca Real Estate Show. I am Joe, and I'm your host every Tuesday evening right here on WNRI 99.9 on the FM dial, 1380 AM. And you can also catch us streaming on WNRI.com if you're out of the range of our antennas. We are here in the heart of the Blackstone Valley in Woonsocket, Rhode Island, and this is the 12th year for the show. And if you don't know, I'm a realtor. I work with buyers and sellers of residential and commercial real estate in Rhode Island and Massachusetts. And if you're looking elsewhere, I have partners, teammates, if you will, in many other countries and states around the country. Who could help you with your real estate needs there too. The best way to reach me is 401-409-5030. Of course, not during the show. 401-409-5030. You can reach me there. So, a lot of activity going on the past, 24, 36 hours. We have a new president. There's a lot of buzz about that. People are asking me, what is this going to do to interest rates? What is this going to do to the real estate market? And again, if I had a crystal ball, I wouldn't have to sell real estate. So I don't know for sure. I can certainly give, an intelligent guesstimate what I think is going to happen. I think we're going to continue to see, interest rates have been increasing. As of today, according to Mortgage News Daily, we're at about a 7.08, which is flat for a 30-year fixed rate. And then the FHA and VA are 6.45 and 6.47. Those are a touch lower, actually, than last Tuesday. But these rates are higher than where we were a month and a half, 2 months ago. So the rates are still, higher, but they're not super high. Again, the historic average for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage is 8%. So we're well off of that for our prime rate, So what does this mean? Well, fortunately or unfortunately, it really has not dampened the demand for homes because it's still a seller's market. As of a little bit before I came on air, there are 745 single-family homes for sale in the entire state of Rhode Island. Okay, and if you look at homes priced at or below the median price, the number is 318. The median price is about $500,000. So if you are just a regular, quote-unquote, average Joe looking to buy a home, prices have gone up. And the reason prices have gone up is because there's a lot of demand. And even though interest rates have increased, it's not making people shy away from trying to buy a home. And they're being pushed to buy a home, of course, because rental rates are so high. Okay? $1,800 a month, $2,000 a month, that's not a lot of rent nowadays. It's a lot of money, but it's not a lot for rent. $2,500, $3,000 for, top-notch apartments. Houses are, definitely in that price range if someone's looking to rent a whole house. So this is what's making folks contemplate and try to prepare themselves to buy a home, to become a home owner and not a tenant, because, of course, home ownership, is the best way to create generational wealth. Homeowners have a net worth that's about 35 times greater than that for tenants, for renters, because they build equity, and typically homeowners start to improve their property, so they're adding value. And the value that they add is typically greater than what it costs to do the work. Okay, so over time, they create wealth. And that's something that can be passed on to children and grandchildren, etc. So, if you're not a homeowner, it's something you may want to consider. Start putting a game plan together. If you don't know where to start, if you don't know how to do that, that's where I come in, because I'm a realtor. I help people find and achieve their real estate dreams. 401-409-5030. That's my number. It's Joe Luca, Luca. Google me, Joe Luca Realtor, and you'll find me. Nice and easy to find. I'm on pretty much all the social media. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. And I have a small presence on TikTok. So yeah, I love helping people put together game plans to become homeowners. So I was talking with someone, I have a buyer who's looking, he's just starting the process. He wants to buy a multifamily property in the Woonsocket area. He's not ready now, but I said, great, let's just start educating you so you become an informed consumer, a smart buyer. Because that's what I like to do, have my buyers understand everything that they're engaging in and participating in, because it's the largest financial transaction of their life. And you don't want to have second thoughts when you're at the closing table. Speaking of closing table, we have a very special guest here tonight, a friend of mine, also an awesome attorney, Marc Gertsacov. Marc, how are you? Thank you very much for coming to the show.
I'm doing great, Joe. Thank you very much for having me.
Excellent.
Appreciate it. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. So tell our listeners and our viewers online a little bit about what, your practice and, what your areas of specialty are and
Sure.
Just your thoughts.
Sure. So I'm mostly a real estate attorney. So I handle a lot of buyers and sellers, landlords and tenants, things that come up in a real estate sphere of things. That's what I do primarily. I've been doing it for almost 25 years now. Time creeps up on you, and you get a lot of closings under your belt. So I've seen a lot of what can go right, and most of it goes right. That's why I like the real estate. It's usually win-win for everybody. Right? Everybody wants to be part of that transaction. I've also seen some times that it's not always win-win.
Right.
And we have a slow buyer or a slow seller, or something happens to the property that nobody planned, and you have to deal with those things. And it's about the people.
Surprises. They're never good in real estate.
And sometimes those surprises take you for a whirlwind. And it depends on the people in that transaction and how you're going to deal with it. For me, I'm not a litigator at all. I eschew all of that stuff. I try to solve problems, make people happy, smiling. Everybody's happy at the end of the closing, usually.
And that's important too, because it is I always say one of the things I love about my job is that I'm always helping someone get into a better place from where they were. So if it's someone buying their first home, if it's after a wedding, family's growing, family's out of the house, they're downsizing. But even when it's not a, air quotes, happy thing, if it's a death in the family or a divorce, people are moving on from something that was a painful experience to something that is a more positive experience. I've done quite a bit of work with folks getting a divorce, and, these folks, it's for whatever reason the marriage wasn't working out, and they just want to put that unhappiness, that unsettled feeling, push it behind them, and now let's start anew. Whether it's even if they have to rent for a period of time, move back in with the folks or family, or if they can buy something else, which is also very nice as well. But even in the not so happy experiences, it can be a positive, because it's just now they're released to go and create more, fun, positive, enjoyable memories in their life.
Right, yeah, you're trying to help people in the situation. So wherever they are, you're trying to add value, help people get through that situation, whether it's buying or selling for any life event that might happen. Hopefully it's a positive things, but unfortunately there are sad times that cause people to do things. I have a client now that's just looking to sell because it's a headache, right? They've got 2 kids, there's giant equity, appreciation, and battling back and forth. Do I keep it for the next 10 years and collect rent and hopefully that the market continues to go up, or do I take the money now and put it in a CD and not have to worry about anything? And sometimes it's like the no worry is a big deal, right? You may lose some appreciation, but you may gain on the other investments that you have.
Well, it's, people, a lot of folks who are not landlords don't realize that landlording is not easy. It's not easy. It's work. And you can get phone calls that you don't want to get in the middle of the night because something happens. You can have the best tenants in the world, but somebody gets into an accident, drives off the road, and drives into your property. Flood. There are things that happen.
New government regulations.
New government regulations. Yeah, like lead laws and just all the electrical issues and whatnot. These things can be problematic, and sometimes landlords just don't want to deal with it. Everybody, you're at a different point in your life, and sometimes things work out, sometimes they don't, and that's what is, when the level exceeds what your tolerance is, that's when it makes sense to try and, sell the property, move into a different situation. I mean, there's actually a financial advisor that I work with, and we've been having some folks where they want to get out, they want to sell something, and there's something called a like-kind exchange, a 1031 exchange, where someone can sell a piece of property, a commercial piece of property, not something you live in, and then take the gain and put it into another property. So you're deferring the capital gains tax onto the next property. So you're not avoiding it, you're deferring it. Well, there's a financial advisor that I work with. They have a real estate investment trust that caters to those folks. So let's say you want to sell your 4-unit property or your 3-unit property. You don't want to buy something bigger. You're trying to dial it back, but you don't want to get, shellacked with the capital gain. If you take the profit and you put it in this this investment vehicle, this real estate investment trust, you still have the benefit of
owning real estate
and deferring the capital gains. And you say, well, Joe, what if I want to take some of the money out? Well, you can. So let's say you put $400,000 into the real estate investment trust, and then in a couple of years you need to take $100,000 out to pay for your daughter's wedding or something. You can, and then you pay the gain on that portion that you're taking out. You pay the capital gains tax on that $100,000. That's all I know. If you want more technical questions, I can connect you with that financial advisor. But there are lots of different options for folks out there who, maybe they're getting a little bit, tired of, landlording.
Yeah. Being a landlord is the IRS generally uses that as a passive activity. It's never always passive.
Right.
A lot of time gets involved. Some people that are professional property managers that you can hire, but they take a cut of the rent, but they also take a lot of the headache.
Yeah.
And then there are some very good ones that you want to have managing your property.
Right.
And that works for a lot of people. Other folks who want to get out and don't want to pay all that capital gain right away, defer the taxes through a 1031. They can buy into that REIT, right? The classic REIT. They can buy a tenant in common interest or a TIC interest.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay. So there you go. There's something. Yeah. Explain that to our listeners. What a tenant in common interest.
So a tenant in common is basically you are a partial owner of the property. It could have a percentage interest if there's if Joe and I buy a property together and we're labeled as tenants in common. Well, if we don't say anything about our percentage interests, will be thought to be equal 50-50, right. Which if you and I invest together, that's what it likely be, right? You put up your half, I'll put up mine, we'll be partners,
right?
But then if something happened to you or something would happen to me, my interest would remain with my estate, right? So I'm a tenant in common, or my heirs would be tenant in common with you. We would own together the property undivided. And then you want to do something with your half, sell it down the road. I could either buy it. We might have an agreement that I buy your share, right of first refusal, or you would buy my share. That's often common.
Now, who is that? I know a lot of the big investors use that, but I mean, on a smaller scale, what would be an example of someone who may have that type of an ownership in a real estate property? Let's say here in Woonsocket.
Here in Woonsocket, you might have somebody who wants another investor who's willing to let you in on a small unit strip store. Or a lot of the big plazas, they're corporately owned.
Right.
They're not letting anybody in with their first $50,000 because they're millions and millions of dollars. I think one in just recently traded, it was 60 million or something. It's a big number. Right? More than the average Joe. Right? But if the average, you're trying to get out of a 4-family and then you're trying to find a way to put the money somewhere else, you might be able to find somebody else to give you a little bit of interest. You want to be certain about those people that you're going into business with, right? when you own real estate together, it's like being married, right?
Yeah.
You may not always get along with them all the
Right.
time.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to work through some of those interests and so differences. And a lot of times it's paperwork, and a lot of times it's trust and handshakes. And
Yep.
if you know the right people and you can get along with them,
Yeah.
it can be a great experience.
Yep.
But
Excellent.
but you do want the paperwork to sort of, what happens if?
Yeah. Right.
Right? What
Yeah,
happens if we have to exit?
Right.
If it's
Worst
sudden,
case scenario. Right.
right? I don't expect it, but I have to get out.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I want to be able to pay my capital gains and
Yep.
walk away with my ball and go home and
Right.
do my own thing.
Yep.
And a lot of those tenant in common interests, they have an exit strategy for you.
Now, have you this is kind of? I know there's partnership insurance. Is there something like that that applies to people who buy properties? So let's say you've got 2 or 3 individuals and they buy a strip plaza or
Right.
an apartment building. Is there partnership insurance, or is that something that's still
Yeah, people have buy-sell agreements, they
Okay.
typically call them.
okay?
Right? It's like, if 3 partners are together and, hey, 3 people need to row the boat together. If one
Right.
falls off, what happens?
Yep.
Right? Not necessarily you weren't going into business with that person's spouse.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Right? So,
yeah.
and that person's spouse or family members, right? It might be young kids that
Yep.
may not know how to do what you're doing.
Yep.
So, you have insurance, you usually take out life insurance on each other. The business pays
Okay.
for it. And then if some issue were to arise, right, that calls for the insurance to be paid out,
Yep.
then, the family member walks away with, their third,
Yep.
their equitable interest. It could have risen, it could have fallen in value since I last invested. I mean, you get a new appraisal.
Oh, yeah. Right.
It's not always positive.
Yep.
Right?
Okay.
But the money's there, so that grieving spouse doesn't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Right?
Gotcha.
And now what happens?
Yep.
So
speaking of grieving spouses and people passing on, you can help folks with planning for situations like that.
Right.
Talk a
So
little
so
bit about
part of
that.
my law practice is mostly it's devoted to real estate, right? But all the people that own real estate are people, right? And everybody, unfortunately, right? There are 2 realities in life, taxes being one of them.
Right.
Right, and so I do some estate planning. I call it small estate planning for the
Yep.
rest of us.
Yep.
Right, there are the people that need extensive estate planning, tax planning. They need to go to people that's all they study is how the tax code works to their benefit.
Yep.
And I work with those attorneys that do the heavy duty estate planning. But that's for the 10% of the
Right.
population.
If that, yeah.
Right? If you have more than $2 million in your estate, you can go see those estate planners.
Yep.
They do a great job. What I focus on are the people in Rhode Island under $2 million, right? Because that's an estate plan where it's, you don't have to do a lot of planning for it. They may
Yep.
have certain conditions, right? One family member may need a little help
Yeah.
than the other family members, right?
Okay.
Like a special needs trust.
But
But there may not be, a lot of different needs between what my wife and I have for my 3 kids,
Right.
between somebody else and his wife and 2 kids or 3 kids. It's just changing names, and the paperwork essentially is the same, right? If something were to happen to me,
Yeah.
I give it to my wife.
Yep.
And if my wife isn't around, I give it to my kids.
Right.
Right? Split equally. I love you all the same.
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes that works for a lot of people, right? And that's what I'm concentrating on. I'm not trying to recreate the wheel and do something whiz bang that you're the only one in the world that has
Right.
it, but providing real value, because I've seen a lot of people that are in an average situation and they pay way too much for their estate plan because it made them feel good that they were driving the, I don't even know, can say Mercedes of the plans.
Right. Yeah.
Right, or the Teslas of the plans, where they really, all they needed something to go 0 to 55.
Right. Yeah.
They didn't need something that went 100 miles an hour.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? So you got to tailor it to the people, and I
Yep.
think sometimes people do get oversold because they want to be oversold.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think that's true. A lot of times, folks, they want to feel like, that either they're special or there's something, they kind of puff themselves up.
Yeah,
a
you're
little bit.
unique.
Right.
We're all unique the same way.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
Uh,
And now, so you help folks with that type of estate planning.
right.
And now, are there different types of? I don't want to get too granular, but I apologize for my ignorance. Are there different types of estate planning scenarios, or like you can own a property in different ways? Are there different types of estates that
Sure.
you can have?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, the estate happens when somebody passes, right?
Right.
So that's like, there's an estate. So that means somebody passed away. So
Right.
there's only one types of those. But
Okay.
you can have different vehicles that sort of operate
Okay.
when somebody and talk when somebody passes. You can have a will.
Yep.
You can have a trust,
Mhm.
right? You can have something called a pour over, where basically it's not a separate trust until the will happens.
Okay.
Right, and then that's for basically families, right?
Yeah.
Where you have little kids that they're not capable of handling any money that they were to receive from their parents' insurance fund.
Yep.
But the insurance is meant to take care of those kids so they can go to school, they can go to get college, they can be raised until they're ready to take care of themselves.
Yep.
So different vehicles, not every a lot of people fit within a couple boxes.
Yep.
Not everybody fits in, and your situation might be unique, right? You may have somebody who needs more help than, one child might need more help than the other kids.
Right.
Right, and you can have special needs trust for those people.
Okay.
So,
Now, what about for folks as they get older? Let's say they don't have kids, and they don't have anybody that's going to be able to take care of them. Are there different types of, or do you work with individuals who help or can direct folks with basically, making sure that if they they can't live on their own anymore, making sure that they have the resources available to get the care that they're going to need. They're not dead, but they're not they're not.
So it's there's probably a growing need of these people that as our population ages,
right,
and there are a lot of people that didn't have kids, out of choice or for other reasons. Right, and they find themselves, they don't have any parents, and they were an only kid, or their one sibling already passed on. Who's to take care of them?
Right.
I don't have that specific estate planning tool. I'm not in an
Okay.
elder law.
Yep. Okay. So that
estate
would be an elder
planner.
law. Okay.
So that'd be more in the elder law
Okay.
area. Somebody
Yep.
who's taken care of for Medicaid, or a lot of these folks. They may want other insurances like long-term care insurance.
Yep.
Right, because they have no other place to go other
Okay.
than some nicer facility than what the state might provide.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
Right? So some of those things are taken care of through insurance, and with insurance, especially those long-term care and life insurance, the earlier you start paying for it, the cheaper it is.
The cheaper it is. Yeah.
Right, and you don't want to start paying for it when you need it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Then you pay through the nose, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Folks, you are listening to the Joe Luca Real Estate Show right here on WNRI 99.9 on the FM dial, 1380 AM. And you can also find us streaming on WNRI.com. I'm Joe, I'm your host, and we rebroadcast this show Saturdays at 1 p.m. So if we talk about something and you want someone else to hear it, you can say, hey, listen to the show on Saturday at 1 o'clock, because you'll hear it then, either on the radio or streaming at that time. I want to do a quick shout out to some of our sponsors. We have George Metz, G Metz Moving and Storage, the best move you'll ever make. G Metz, they do a fantastic job taking care of all of your belongings, whether you're a tenant or a homeowner going from one to the other. G Metz Moving and Storage, they do an awesome job. They've moved me, my family, colleagues, clients. They do a really good job. Their workers, their movers work for them. They're not, people that they just picked up off of Craigslist or something like that. They're actual employees. And that makes a big difference because, they're covered with all the insurances, they're experienced, they're knowledgeable, they know what they're doing. And G Metz, they can help you whether you're moving if you've got to move furniture from one side of the house to the other, or you have to maybe take it out of the house temporarily so you can have your floors redone, GMETs can do that because they have storage facility, and it's, heated storage. It's not like it's outside in a garage somewhere. They have a storage facility where your belongings can be stored while your house is being worked on. Or if you're buying a house and the new house isn't ready yet, they can help you with that too. All you have to do is just go to their website, gmetsmoving.com. That's G as in George, M as in Michael, E as in Edward, T as in Tom, Z as in Zebra, moving.com. You can get a quote for a move, or you can actually schedule a move at their website. I also want to talk about Vern Rainville, Public Insurance Adjuster. He is licensed by the state of Rhode Island as a public insurance adjuster. He can help you with your insurance claims, even if they were as much as 2 years ago. Vern will help you receive as much money as you are entitled to receive for your claim based on your policy. And if he can't do anything for you, he'll let you know up front. He's, a lot of experience. He's been in the industry a long time. Vern Rainville, Public Insurance Adjuster, 484-300-8495. That's 484-300-8495. Vern Rainville, Public Insurance Adjuster. So we're getting back to our guest here in studio, Marc Gertsacov, and we've been talking about not only real estate stuff, helping people buy and sell real estate. We've been talking about tenants in common. We've been talking about 1031 exchanges. We're talking about wills and trusts, things like that. Not the normal stuff that we talk about here on the Joe Luca Real Estate Show, but these are things that are very important to a lot of folks. So pay attention, and if you have any questions or you're not sure about something, if this applies to you, if you should do something, what you're going to do is you're going to reach out to Marc and you're going to give him a call. And the best number for them to call you at, Marc, is...
my phone number, 401-952-0856. Again, 401-952-0856. And also you can see my website, mglawri.com, as in Marc Gertsacov, lawri.com. So mglawri.com. Thank you so much.
Excellent. See, nice and easy. Marc, he's a local guy. He's been here a million years. He knows the Rhode Island and Massachusetts area. So he works with folks on the residential side and on the commercial side. And there aren't a lot of attorneys that have the depth and scope of knowledge and experience that Marc has.
Yeah.
So talk. How about if I want to?
So I can talk about something that happened for the Blackstone Valley.
Okay.
Recently, I was proud to be part of a new apartment building that's going to be constructed next to the train station. It's called Dexter Street Commons.
Yep.
So I was working with the developer for about 5 years now. He's from New Jersey. He's a great guy. He found me through our college network.
Oh, nice.
And he said, "Hey, you went to Skidmore College." I said, "Oh, yes." So proud. He says, "I did too, about 10 years before you."
Wow. And
so he found me, and he ended up buying two pieces of property, put them together. One was from the city of Pawtucket, and Pawtucket couldn't have been greater to sort of allow this sort of development. It's the first real construction that's happened in Pawtucket in a long time.
Yeah.
Right? 150-unit apartment building, about 20,000 square feet of retail space.
Yeah.
Going to be sort of a public park type area that you can walk in between from the train station to the rest of Pawtucket.
Yep.
So it's sort of a gateway project.
Yep.
It's going to be a great project. So I was able to go to the groundbreaking a couple weeks ago.
That's great news.
All the state legislators were there. Senator Reed. I mean, it was great time.
Yeah.
So I was proud to be part of that sort of, nice project.
Yeah, and now, folks, I want to point out that in case it, slipped by, he's been working on this for 5 years because commercial real estate projects, or commercial real estate, especially development projects, take a lot longer than residential purchases and development.
Right.
And there are a lot of different reasons for that. I know one of the reasons probably is not the administration, because in my experience, the administration in Pawtucket, they are just like, he's really receptive.
Pawtucket wants development.
Yeah.
I think all the cities and towns in Rhode Island
Yeah.
want development.
Yep.
Right, that's generally the case.
Yeah.
Most are welcoming, open arms.
Mhm.
Here's the process. This is what we need to do.
Yep.
But a lot of the hurdles come in from, actually, how do you do it? Right.
Right.
Can you raise all the money that you need to raise?
Mhm.
Can you borrow all the money that you need to borrow?
Right.
Can you find contractors that are good enough for that big project? Because not every contractor can
That's right.
Handle
Has that
building
capacity.
a skyscraper,
Yeah.
right? It just, nobody's done it before.
Yeah.
Very select few have that wherewithal
Mhm.
to really manage a giant project like that. So, it's hard. It's hard.
Now, is this going to have are there any deed restrictions or anything like
There's
that?
some middle housing and low-income housing deed restrictions.
Mhm.
It's mostly called workforce development
Gotcha.
housing.
Yep.
That's sort of the key.
We need a lot of that.
And 20%. So it's not
Yeah.
the whole project,
Mhm.
right? So it's going to be a mixed community. You're not going to know which apartment
Right.
is workforce and which one's market rate.
Yep.
So that's and that's part of all the new affordable housing development law.
Mhm.
You're not supposed to be able to pick it out,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And the other things are, I think it's really a boon. Hopefully everybody moves there and there's, a big waiting list.
Yeah. I'm sure there will be. Because everything that gets, developed gets sucked up right away, even here in Rhode Island, folks,
Right. Yeah, I think that's the testament to Rhode Island is
Yeah.
For value scale, we got a lot more value than
Yep.
our neighbors.
That's right. So is that what attracted the developer to Pawtucket, is the opportunity for the value, or was it the proximity to the train station? What was
For this developer, and I don't want to speak directly for him, but it was a confluence of a lot of things.
Yep.
One being brand new train station,
Yeah.
right? Which it's in an opportunity zone, so
Yeah.
that's for tax credits
Yeah.
and all sorts of other benefactors like that. But it was also that it's like an urban blighted community that needs development.
Mhm.
And when you have something of this nature, it sort of spurs along all the other developments.
Yep.
So this is a catalyst
Yeah.
for the city, right? And
Yeah.
for the neighborhood. I mean, as Rhode Island goes, right?
Yeah.
Anything is good for all of Rhode Island.
True.
Right? It's
Very
so
true.
small
Yeah.
that, it's a real butterfly effect, right? If
Yeah.
something happens in Pawtucket, it's going to bleed into Central Falls, it's going to bleed into Lincoln, into Woonsocket,
Absolutely.
all across, and, in 15 minutes, you're in
Yeah.
all those places.
Right.
Right? So if I want to go to dinner,
Right.
right, something's good, we're going to travel,
Mhm.
right?
Now, how big, financially, how much is this development going to cost?
It's like close to a $50 million build.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
great.
that's the reality of it.
Yeah,
and,
that's
you
great.
know, and even though the land was a little cheaper than it
Mhm.
would be in New York or Boston,
Oh, yeah. Yep.
the cost of the sink is the same.
Right.
The cost of the plumber is pretty much the same, and
Yeah.
all those other hard costs,
Mhm.
the architects, the same
Yeah,
price.
same price.
Same price as if he was building in Malaysia or
Right.
anywhere else, right?
Right,
Those
yeah.
are just sort of realities. So
Mhm.
to get development like this, for the rents are certainly different in Pawtucket than
Yeah.
they would be in Boston or New York.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So those are reasons why Rhode Island might languish a little bit.
Mhm.
I think, but more development again is going to spur more development.
Yeah.
And-
Yeah. No, I love seeing developments like that, leveraging, the existing, in this case, revamped infrastructure. The Rhode Island is so fortunate in that we have so many transportation opportunities. We have rail, we have air, we have a great surface transportation system with all of our highways. You can ship stuff out on a boat, marine. So there's a lot of transportation opportunities in Rhode Island in such a small area. And I think that's kind of why we're so spoiled, in the sense that Rhode Islanders don't like to drive more than 20 minutes without packing a lunch. I chuckle when I tell my colleagues from around the country, especially like the big states, and they're like, "What? You don't like driving 30 minutes to go, to get something to eat?" And it's like, we have to drive an hour to get anything.
Right. Yeah,
So
yeah.
We're
Yeah,
very,
we got
very
10
spoiled.
Walmarts in a 20-mile radius.
Yeah. Right.
Right. They have one Walmart in a 50-mile radius.
Right. Yeah.
And that's sort of, again, the reality of and the beauty of Rhode Island.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
You recognize people's license plates
Yeah,
on
right.
the highway.
Right.
I know that
Yeah.
guy. It's my
Yeah.
neighbor.
Yep. But what's great is, I mean, in Rhode Island, we're getting a little off track, but, we have rural, like the Burravilles and the Fosters, and then we have Central Falls for densely populated, culturally diverse, and then you've got everything else, like, East Woonsocket, Cumberland, North Providence, Johnston, Cranston, like, the typical suburban communities, with plots of houses and everything. So
Yeah.
we have, soup to nuts, everything, the white bread areas, the culturally diverse areas, and I think that's one of the things that makes this state so attractive.
You're sure. And, in 30 minutes from wherever you are, you can be swimming.
Right, exactly.
In the ocean.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
If you catch the water, it's warm.
Yeah.
The right month.
Yep. Yep. Very true. Very true. Folks, you're listening to the Joe Luca Real Estate Show right here on WNRI. I'm Joe. I'm your host every Tuesday evening from 6 to 7 o'clock p.m. on WNRI 99.9 FM, 1380 AM, and WNRI.com. You can listen to us on your phone even if you're out of range of our radio station. Just pull up WNRI.com and you can listen to us streaming right there. This is a show for you, the consumer, so I try to talk about things that are relative to folks who want to become homeowners. If you're a tenant right now or you're living with family and you want to start, venture out to buy a home, whether you're 22 or 72 or anything in between, it's never a bad time to buy a home, okay? And some folks say, well, Joe, I'm 75 years old. How can I get a mortgage? Well, they can't discriminate against you because you're 75. So even if no one in your family lives past 80, you can still get a 30-year mortgage. They can't discriminate, so just have to qualify for it. So if you think you want to stop paying rent, whatever your age is, give me a call, 401-409-5030, and we can put together a game plan for you. It doesn't cost anything. I like my job. I love my job. I like helping people put together their real estate dream so they can achieve maximum value from their real estate transaction. Okay, if you want to sell, there are things you should do. The earlier you start planning to sell your home, the better off you're going to be. One, because it's not going to be overwhelming. And two, from a cost perspective. So if you can kind of space the things you need to fix or repair or replace over a 12 or 18 month period, as opposed to doing it over a 3-week period, which is what a lot of folks typically do, you're better off. Okay. And what if you're like, Joe, I've got so much to do on my house. I can't do it. I'm all alone. I have a team of vendors that I work with that I can refer you to who could probably help you out. If it's like cleaning stuff out of the basement, taking stuff out of the attic or the garage, or just cleaning up around the house. You've got, you've got that project you started in the backyard, you never finished, you need to get it out of there to make the property look better. We have folks on my team that can help you with that. Vendors that I work with, I can refer you to them and see if it's something you want to pursue. So it's never too early to start the process of planning to sell your home, and likewise for buying your home, because you can save more money, you can pay down more debt, you can improve your credit score the earlier you start. So we could have you connect with, someone like Val Tridenti, who does credit repair. She's been on the show before, and she can say, okay, this is what you need to do, Steve, to get your credit improved so that you can qualify for the next tier of a mortgage where you're going to have a lower interest rate by 1/4 of a point, and that's going to save you so much money over 30 years. So again, planning ahead, not waiting until the last minute. Now, if you wait till the last minute, sometimes there are some things we can do, but clearly not as much, because some things take time. Some things take time. And, I was talking with someone today, a friend of mine, about, he's like, Joe, what's the deal with homes in Rhode Island? I don't think I can afford anything. So he, told me how much he makes per year, and I was like, all right. I said, you know what, let me do some research, talk to some of my lender friends, and see what's available out there because there are different mortgage programs for different situations. There are grants that are available for different types of homeowners, depending on what your income is, depending on what type of a property you want to buy, a lot of different things like that. There may be programs that make it possible for you to buy a home, as opposed to going to the wrong lender where they tell you, no, we don't have anything for you, you don't qualify, you don't make enough money, your credit's not good enough, you don't have enough job history, which if you don't have enough job history, you've got to just work longer, but we can give you some tips on what to do and things in the meantime while you're extending your job history. So don't be intimidated by preconceived thoughts about what it takes to buy or sell a home. It doesn't cost anything to give me a call at 401-409-5030. You can also text me at that number. Again, 401-409-5030. And we can set up either a phone call, a Zoom meeting, FaceTime, Skype, whatever you like. Or if you want to come into my office, I have a great office. We can meet and talk. Whatever works for you, we can do. Okay? Because I love my job. That's what I do. And I try to get that message out to as many people as possible here on the Joe Luca Real Estate Show every week. So again, we have a very special guest, my friend and fellow real estate professional, Marc Gertsacov. We've been talking about a lot of the different things. We've been talking about commercial real estate because, Marc is one of the few real estate attorneys that knows his way around a commercial real estate transaction. And I'm going to shoot Marc a question right now, because one thing that people who don't do real estate and don't do commercial real estate, aren't aware of is where to find that RIAR form for a commercial real estate purchase and sales agreement.
Yeah. So the RIAR doesn't, create that commercial real estate.
There isn't one. Yep.
They have so the RIAR, Rhode Island Association of Realtors, they provide a lot of forms for realtors to use. Partly because to just make the transaction easier, right? A lot of people, if a residential setting, they're not consulting their own attorneys. They've produced a great purchase and sales agreement. And sometimes it needs a little bit more teeth and a little less teeth depending on the situation. And, if I get involved with prior to somebody, clients buying or selling, I might make suggestions to their contract. A lot of times I say, that's fine. You're using the standard form. It's pretty fair on both sides. If somebody really wanted to get out, they likely could find a way, especially the buyer. Sellers are usually tied up. If you sign that seller, you're bound to sell that property, right? That's sort of what you did.
And the reason for that is because whether you're selling a house in Woonsocket or Westerly or anywhere in between, in Rhode Island, we don't have county government or municipal governments that change that process.
Right. The state controls that.
The state controls that. So it's different. However, on commercial properties...
the attorneys draft the real estate contract.
Yeah.
And sometimes we draft the letters of intent or other memorandums of understanding, or however the parties sort of want to put together like the broad strokes and say, do we agree on these 7, 8, 10, 12 points?
Yep.
And then from there we'll craft a purchase and sales agreement that, depending on the project, could be 5 pages, it could be 55 pages, right? And generally, the bigger the number, the more pages we add, partly because it's all about due diligence and what happens if, and how do I extend this time, because I'm going to invest, if I'm a buyer of a large piece of property, I may have to invest $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 just in my due diligence to see if it's really worth my while to go through the transaction. Right? You have to hire engineers for underground work, right? Environmental work, appraisers, planners, architects, attorneys, right? So a lot of soft costs get poured in, as we mentioned earlier, time. Right? Could be 9 months worth of investigation. I had a seller dump me. I recently, about last year, March, I went out on my own. And, when I left my big fancy law firm in Providence, I took, most of my clients willingly left with me. And this one woman said, I'm going to go with you, but you better closed I said, I don't control that. This was a piece of property that she had a a large farming operation, and the buyer wanted to turn it into residential housing.
Okay.
And the buyer had to do a whole bunch of get town permissions.
Yep.
Right? And I explained to the seller, hey, look, it may take 6 months for it to go through it may take longer.
Yeah.
Right? Unfortunately, it took longer. She didn't want to wait anymore. She threw me. She was, that's it, I'm done with you.
Right.
And fired me. It's like I've lost 3 clients in my 25-year career.
Right.
And it was just because she didn't have the patience for the development.
Yeah.
Commercial takes time.
Exactly.
Right? If you want to get the best price.
Right.
If you wanted to just dump it, somebody might jump and not waste or have all those preconditions because they're getting such a good deal.
Yeah.
Right? But if you want to get the top of the market,
that's right.
Sometimes you have to wait for it.
Yeah, and folks, a lot of these things have to do with, in a situation like this, you have to deal with the planning department of the municipality. Plans have to be submitted by the developer, in this case the buyer, and if they don't like them, we don't, like the way your road is, or whatever it could be. It could be anything.
The neighbor shows up.
The neighbors complain, and then now you got to go back. And a lot of times they may meet once a month. So if you don't get what you need in January, that means you've got to wait a whole month. Now it's February, and February, somebody's sick and somebody's on vacation, so now it gets pushed to March. Yeah. And this is like the realities of life that can drag things out. That people need to understand that, but unfortunately sometimes they don't.
Right. Yeah. People, they hear one thing because that's what they want to hear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And part of our goal is the real estate sort of Sherpas, right? Guide them through their transaction.
Yep.
Is to set expectations.
Yeah. Right.
Right. Hey, here's what's going to happen, and it may take longer than you thought because these things need to happen.
Yeah.
Right. And not everybody is happy about it. Right. I had a client reach out to me on Saturday. I need help. I was supposed to close Thursday. I wasn't involved before Saturday. Okay, but
they wanted you to take out that magic Harry Potter wand.
Yeah, just wave it around, right? And so okay, send me the docs to look at, and so today because yesterday was the holiday, right? So today we got to work with the other attorney, and it's like, okay, how are we going to solve this problem that I wasn't involved with before Saturday, but now trying to wave the wand and make everybody happy, and it's setting expectations after the fact is sometimes difficult. Right? But hopefully, a couple shakes of the wand and a few prayers. Right? Maybe we're going to get this buyer over the hump to the closing table soon enough.
Now, is that a commercial or residential?
That's a residential.
Okay.
A residential, just, buyers claiming they missed the lender, lender's slowing them up, and this, that, the other thing. And it's like, well, you signed a contract without any of those, those time periods have passed.
Yeah.
Right? Now we need to deal with, going forward.
Yeah.
Right?
I know, and that's the thing, too. There are deadlines on the contract for a reason. And we're fortunate in Rhode Island in that we are not a time is of the essence state. So what that means is, all right, we know it's supposed to be on Friday the 15th, but maybe it's Saturday. There's a little bit of as long as people are communicating, sometimes you can kind of get that overlooked. But if it's time is of the essence, like Massachusetts, if it's 5 o'clock on Friday, it's 5 o'clock on Friday, and that's it, unless you get an extension.
Right.
And
more harsher penalties.
Right. And sometimes folks don't realize that they missed a deadline. I told you what the deadline was, and everything's in black and white. And here it is in black and white, me pointing out that this is the deadline. I can't force you to comply with it. So it's
people get upset when they when they're on the short end of that stick.
Yes.
Right. And it happens.
Yeah.
And most of the time it's things beyond their control.
Yeah.
And I think most of my experience is when it's beyond the person's control, the other side is a willing participant to say, you know what, we understand it was beyond your control. Here's another week.
Yeah.
Right? Reimburse me for my lost expenses because I had to incur 5-7 days more mortgage that I wouldn't have had to incur had you closed the week prior. But I'll give you the extra week.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Some people might say, oh, thank you so much for your deposit.
Yes.
I'm going to go sell it again to somebody else. You defaulted.
Right.
Right? And now we're going to have a 6-month battle over, were they really in default? Was it worth it? Is it who was not performing? And so sometimes I come in and, guide the unwilling participant to say it's not, let's see the forest for the trees.
Right.
Soften the position a little bit. The big goal was to get it sold.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's what I always say is, look, as long as, you have a ready and willing buyer and you have a ready and willing seller, let's try and get this thing consummated. Let's address the challenges and make it so we can move on.
Right. Yeah. Keep focus on the big prize.
Exactly.
Right.
So, folks, you're listening to the Joe Luca Real Estate Show right here on WNRI, and my guest is Marc Gertsacov. Marc, again, what is the best number for people to reach you at, and your website?
My best phone number is 401-952-0856. Again, 952-0856. Or my website, mglawri.com. mglawri.com. Basically, it's a splash page where you can see my face and tells you all about the things that I like to do. Real estate, estate planning, small corporate. Right? So if you bought a little investment property, typically the best way that people would like to hold it is in a limited liability company and an LLC.
Yep.
Similar to a corporation, little more flexible in its operation because it's been around less time. So less laws have been created to sort of hammer and shape the LLC law versus corporate law.
Yes.
Right? But primarily they're very similar, where they protect your assets or, the real estate investment is separate and apart from your other life.
Right.
Right? So a lot of people like the LLC. Your accountants like the LLC. And so I help people organize those things on a regular basis. And I also help them, sometimes you need a license to operate, a liquor license to operate a restaurant.
Okay, yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Or, you need entertainment license,
Yep.
right? To hire the DJ for that one day.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to act within each town. Again, most towns or cities or towns, they're receptive. They want business.
Yeah.
They don't want certain types of businesses.
Exactly.
Right? I was recently in Pawtucket for a client who's using reflexology. It's an Asian foot spa.
Yep.
Right? But Asian foot spas in the 70s had a different connotation.
Okay.
So the cities and towns generally, if you're going to have the word spa, we want you to come before the board to make sure that you're up and up.
Oh, my goodness.
Right?
Wow.
So this was a nice woman who's offering, traditional reflexology.
Yep.
Everybody's clothed. Everybody's, sort of, in the same room with one another. But we had to go in front of the town one night.
Yep.
Just put out a presentation. And, I helped her out. And again, it didn't cost her a lot. She didn't understand why she had to do that.
Yeah.
But, every town has their own regulations about what they'll allow in the town.
Yep.
With permission or without. And sometimes if you don't have immediate permission, you can ask for permission.
Excellent. That's why it's worth, folks, reaching out to an experienced, knowledgeable attorney like Marc Gertsacov. We want to thank Marc for coming on the show tonight. We're at the end of our hour. Time flew by. Marc, thank you very much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Folks, tune in again to the Joe Luca Real Estate Show every Tuesday, 6 to 7 p.m. right here on WNRI, 99.9 FM, 1380 AM, WNRI.com. We are streaming, and we rebroadcast the show every Saturday at 1 p.m. So take care, everybody. Same bat time, same bat channel. We'll be back next week. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you.
Get this stopped here.